Dear children, today we'll be doing the story We Are Not Afraid to Die If We Can All Be Together. Dear students, man is adventurous by nature, and the greater the risk, the more the thrill. So, the protagonist of this story wishes to duplicate the voyage of Captain James Cook. This story also suggests that optimism certainly helps to endure the direst stress. So, let's talk about the story. In this story, the narrator, who is a 37-year-old businessman, his wife Mary, 6-year-old son Jonathan, and 7-year-old daughter Suzanne, set sail from Plymouth, England in July 1976. They wished to go around the world on a long sea journey as Captain James Cook had done 200 years earlier. They started in 23-meter, 30-ton wooden-hulled boat named Wave Walker. So the name of their boat was Wave Walker. The first part of their planned 3-year, 105,000 kilometers journey passed pleasantly. Okay, there was any obstacle. They sailed down the west coast of Africa to Cape Town. They took on 2 crewmen, Larry and Vigil, an American, and Herb Siegler, a Swiss, to help them cross the rough southern Indian Ocean. On the second day, out of Cape Town, they faced extremely strong winds which blew continuously for next few weeks. Waves rose up to 15 meters. On December 25, they were 3,500 kilometers east of Cape Town. Though the weather was very bad, they enjoyed Christmas and New Year's Day. Okay. The weather changed for worse. They were expecting a good weather, but it changed for worse. On January 2, there were mighty waves. They were sailing at 8 knots. They showed down the boat by dropping the small sail and fastening mooring rope in a loop across the hind part of the boat. Then they attached lifelines, put on waterproof clothes and life jackets, and waited for the storm. The first sign of the imminent disaster came as portentous silence. The wind dropped and the sky immediately grew dark. Then came a growing roar and a very huge wave. Those who have seen the movie The Life of a Pi, they can very well imagine how it happened. A tremendous explosion shook the deck. The narrator's head stuck on the wheel and he flew over the side of the boat into water. He was sinking below the waves. He accepted his coming death. Okay, he simply accepted that he was going to die. Suddenly, his head appeared out of water a few meters away. Wave Walker was about to turn over in water. Then a wave threw her upright. Succeeding waves threw the narrator around the deck like a rag doll. His left ribs cracked. His mouth was filled with blood and broken teeth. He somehow found the wheel and lined up the stern for the next wave. There was water everywhere on the ship, but he could not leave his place in order to investigate the situation. Suddenly, his wife Mary opened a door in the deck and shouted that they were sinking as the decks were broken. The narrator asked her to take the wheel. Okay, he took help of his wife. Then he moved quickly to the door. Larry and Herb were pumping water out of the ship. The wooden beam had broken. The whole starboard side had bulged inward. Clothes, crockery, jars, tins and toys moved around noisily in water. And if you have seen Titanic, then I hope you can very well imagine that what type of scene is being depicted by the author. He crawled into the children's cabin. Sue had got a big bump on her head. He had no time to pay attention to her. He found a hammer, screws, canvas, started repairing work. He managed to stretch canvas and secure waterproof hatch cover across the gaping holes. Most of the water was now being deflected over the side. Then the hand pumps started to block up the debris. The electric pump had a short circuit. Water level rose up dangerously. He found that two spare hand pumps had been pulled away by currents along with the forestay sail and the jib, the dinghies and the main anchor. He searched another electric pump connected to it, an out pipe, and water was pumped out throughout night. They got no replies for their mayday calls. The mayday calls are the calls made in distress, and they were getting no reply for their mayday calls. Sue's head had swollen alarmingly. She had two enormous black eyes and a deep cut on her arm. On the morning of January 3, the pump had reduced the amount of water on board. Each of them took rest for 2 hours, turn by turn. They had survived for 15 hours since the waves hit the wave walker, but she was not strong enough to take them to Australia. He checked the charts. He calculated that there were two small islands a few kilometers to the east. He hoped to reach Isle Amsterdam, a French scientific base. Now he wishes to reach land so that they can get some help, and he has dropped the idea to sail around the world. On January 4, after 36 hours of continuous pumping, they reached the last few centimeters of water. Now they had to keep pace with the water still coming in. Mary found some corned beef and cracker biscuit. They ate their first meal in almost 2 days. Okay, so that was their first meal. Their relief was short-lived. At 4 p.m., black clouds began building up, and within an hour, the wind was back to 40 knots. The seas were getting higher throughout the night. The weather became worse. By dawn on January 5, their situation was extremely dangerous. The narrator went in to comfort the children. John asked if they were going to die. The narrator tried to assure him that they could make it. Then John said, "We are not afraid of dying if we can all be together." So that was very sentimental and sensitive thing. The narrator could find no words to respond. He determined to fight the sea when he found support of his family members. So he was determined to save his family, to fight the sea and save his crew also. To protect the weak starboard side, he decided to stop the sea with the undamaged port hull facing the oncoming waves. He used an improvised sea anchor of heavy nylon rope. Okay, he used that of heavy nylon rope and two 22 liters plastic barrel of paraffin. More water rushed in through the broken plank in the evening. On the morning of January 6, the wind became less severe. The narrator got a reading on the sextant. He made quick calculation. She came in and gave in a card she made. Okay, his daughter came and she gave him a card. She had drawn caricatures of Mary and the narrator. It also had a message expressing love and thanks. At 2 p.m., after checking calculation, the narrator asked Larry to steer a course of 185 degrees. He could then expect to see an island at about 5 p.m. Then he went below, climbed on his bunk and dozed off. He woke up at 6 p.m. John entered and asked if he could embrace his daddy. She was right behind him. Sue was also there. They called him the best daddy in the whole world and the best captain. They informed him that they had found the island. The narrator rushed to the deck. He saw the outline of the island of Isle Amsterdam, and he found it the most beautiful island of the world. The night they anchored offshore. The next morning, all 28 inhabitants of the island cheered them and helped them ashore. After reaching the land, the narrator thought of Larry and Herbie. They had been cheerful under direct stress. Mary had stayed at the wheel for those crucial hours. Then he thought of a 7-year-old girl who did not want them to worry about her head injury, and of the 6-year-old boy who was not afraid to die. And this all inspired him to write. about his experiences. Thank you.